He thought spending a month in prison would be the ultimate reality TV stunt. But when the camera stopped rolling, this billionaire still refused to leave his cell, and what he discovered behind bars changed everything. Richard Westmont III was the kind of man who measured his worth in zeros. At 42, he stood 6 feet tall with perfectly styled silver hair, wore $5,000 suits, and commanded boardrooms with a ruthless efficiency that had built his tech empire. His penthouse overlooking Manhattan was a temple to excess. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and art worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. Richard lived in a world where money solved every problem, and power meant never having to face consequences. Inside Riverside Correctional Facility, 300 miles away, lived Marcus Johnson, a world apart in every way that mattered. At 38, Marcus was lean and weathered, his dark skin bearing the quiet dignity of someone who'd learned to survive with grace. Convicted of armed robbery at 19 to feed his younger siblings after their mother died, Marcus had spent the last 19 years transforming himself. He taught literacy classes to fellow inmates, earned his GED and then a bachelor's degree through correspondence courses, and had become the unofficial counselor for men struggling with addiction and anger. The collision of these two worlds began when Richard's PR team pitched him an outrageous idea. His company was facing a massive scandal. Leaked emails showed him laughing about laying off thousands of workers right before Christmas to boost quarterly profits. His approval ratings had tanked, and he was being called America's most hated CEO. His publicist, desperate to rehabilitate his image, suggested the ultimate reality show stunt. Richard would trade places with a prison inmate for 30 days, living their life while cameras document his journey of understanding. The concept was designed to be pure theater. Richard would spend a few uncomfortable weeks in minimum security, emerge with manufactured humility, and launch a media tour about how prison had opened his eyes. It was cynical, calculated, and exactly the kind of attention-grabbing move that could turn his reputation around. The prison system, hungry for positive publicity and reform funding, agreed to participate. Richard treated the whole arrangement like a business deal. He negotiated for the safest inmate to swap with, someone educated, nonviolent, and unlikely to cause trouble in his penthouse. Marcus Johnson seemed perfect, a model prisoner with no history of violence, respected by guards and inmates alike. Richard's team even ran background checks, ensuring Marcus had no connections who might take advantage of the situation. The swap was orchestrated with military precision. Richard arrived at Riverside Correctional in an armored car, flanked by camera crews and security personnel. He wore his smuggest smile as he shook hands with the warden, treating the entire experience like an expensive vacation to an exotic location. 30 days, he told the cameras, and I'll show America that anyone can overcome adversity with the right mindset. Meanwhile, Marcus was transported to Richard's penthouse under heavy guard, supposedly to experience life on the outside, while Richard learned about incarceration. The cameras would follow both men, creating a documentary about inequality and second chances that Richard's team was already planning to monetize. But from the moment Richard walked into cell block D, his carefully constructed reality began to crumble. The smell hit him first. Industrial disinfectant mixed with unwashed bodies and desperation. His cell was a concrete box barely larger than his walk-in closet, furnished with a thin mattress, a metal toilet, and a tiny desk where Marcus had left neat stacks of books and handwritten letters. Richard's first night was sleepless hell. The sounds, men crying, arguing, the constant clang of metal doors, made him question his sanity. But it was the silence that followed, the crushing weight of confinement, that truly terrified him. For the first time in his adult life, Richard couldn't escape, couldn't buy his way out, couldn't call his lawyers or assistants to fix the problem. The other inmates treated him with a mixture of amusement and contempt. They knew exactly who he was, the rich man playing dress-up in their world. But as days passed and Richard's arrogance began to crack, something unexpected started to happen. Men who had initially mocked began to share their stories, and Richard found himself listening, really listening, for the first time in years. There was Danny, a 22-year-old serving 5 years for selling drugs to pay for his daughter's medical bills. There was William, a 55-year-old accountant whose gambling addiction had led him to embezzle from a children's charity. There was Carlos, who'd been in and out of the system since he was 16, failed by every institution that was supposed to help him. Richard began attending Marcus's literacy classes, initially as a camera-friendly gesture, but gradually becoming genuinely involved. He watched grown men struggle to read children's books, their faces lighting up when they finally grasped a concept. He saw the dignity with which they faced their circumstances, the way they looked out for each other, the depth of their regret, and their determination to change. 2 weeks into the swap, Richard made a decision that shocked everyone. He asked for the cameras to be turned off. He told the production team he needed authentic time to process the experience. What he really needed was space to confront the growing realization that everything he believed about success, worth, and human nature was wrong. Meanwhile, Marcus was having his own revelation in Richard's penthouse. With access to resources he'd never dreamed of, Marcus used Richard's library, computers, and connections to research criminal justice reform, correspond with policymakers, and draft proposals for prisoner education programs. He lived simply, barely touching Richard's luxury goods, instead spent his time writing and thinking about how privilege and opportunity shape human outcomes. The turning point came during Richard's 3rd week, when news broke that one of his factories had exploded due to safety violations he'd personally approved to cut costs. 3 workers died and dozens were injured. Watching the coverage from the prison common room, surrounded by men who'd lost jobs to his cost-cutting measures, Richard felt the full weight of his choices for the first time. That night, alone in his cell, Richard broke down completely. The tears came in waves, for the workers who died, for the families he destroyed with layoffs, for the man he became in pursuit of wealth and power. For the first time in decades, he felt genuine remorse, not the calculated regret of someone caught doing wrong, but the deep, soul-crushing awareness of real harm caused to real people. When the 30 days officially ended, Richard's team arrived to collect him, cameras rolling, ready to capture his transformation story. But Richard refused to leave. Standing in the prison yard, wearing his orange jumpsuit, he looked into the camera and said words that would make headlines around the world. "I can't leave. Not yet. These men have taught me more about honor, dignity, and real wealth than I learned in 42 years of privilege. I need to stay and figure out how to make this right." The media erupted. Richard's lawyers threatened him with breach of contract. His board called emergency meetings. But Richard was unmovable. He voluntarily extended his stay, working with prison administrators to develop new programs, using his wealth to fund education initiatives, and most importantly, listening to the stories of men society had written off. Marcus, meanwhile, had used his month of freedom to complete applications for law school, establish a nonprofit organization for prisoner reentry, and create a detailed plan for criminal justice reform. When Richard finally emerged from prison 6 months later, the 2 men had developed an unlikely partnership. Richard returned to his company a completely changed man. He implemented radical reforms, living wages for all employees, comprehensive benefits, worker safety protocols that exceeded federal requirements. He liquidated most of his personal assets to establish the Second Chance Foundation, providing education and job training for formerly incarcerated individuals. Marcus was accepted to law school on a full scholarship funded by Richard's foundation. He became a powerful advocate for prison reform, eventually arguing cases before the Supreme Court. The 2 men, who had traded places as strangers from different worlds, became partners in creating systemic change. 3 years later, Richard still lived in a modest apartment, having sold his penthouse to fund the foundation. When reporters asked if he missed his old life, he would smile and say, "I spent 42 years in a prison of my own making, one built from greed, isolation, and indifference. Those 30 days in a real prison set me free." Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the depth of our connections to others and our commitment to lifting them up. And sometimes it takes losing everything we think matters to discover what truly does. If you like that story, please subscribe for more. Thank you, and until next time.